White CEO fired the black cleaner. Then read the name on the building. Jordan arrived at the building earlier than usual, even though the sun was barely awake and the city streets still felt half asleep. His hands were tired, his back ached from years of bending and lifting, but he kept moving with the same quiet pride he carried since the first day he stepped inside the tall glass tower. Cleaning wasn't just a job for him, it was his way of surviving, staying humble, and keeping a promise he made long ago. Most people didn't even look at him when they walked past. Some nodded kindly, some ignored him completely, but Jordan never complained. He believed that dignity didn't come from titles. It came from the way a man carried himself when no one clapped for him. But today, something felt different the moment he stepped into the main lobby. The air wasn't calm like every other morning. It felt thick, heavier, almost warning him of something he couldn't see yet. As he pushed his cleaning cart down the long marble hallway, he noticed the CEO, Mr. Collins, standing with his arms crossed, tapping his foot like a man waiting to explode. Jordan paused. He knew that stance. He knew that look. And he knew this wouldn't be good. Before Jordan could speak, the CEO's voice cut through the hall like a cold wind. Late again, I see. Jordan opened his mouth, trying to explain how he had stopped to help an elderly woman outside who couldn't walk up the stairs. But Mr. Collins lifted a hand sharply, shutting him down before a single word could escape. I'm not interested in excuses, he said. This company deserves people who show up for their job. You clearly can't. You're fired. The words landed on Jordan's chest like a heavy stone, but he didn't argue. He didn't plead. He simply lowered his eyes, feeling that familiar burn behind them, the kind that comes when life hits the same wound again and again. He quietly pushed his cart toward the door, moving past employees who watched in silence, each one pretending not to see the pain on his face. He wondered how many more hits life expected him to take, how much more he had to lose before something finally changed. When he reached the exit, a strange pull made him lift his eyes toward the giant metal letters above the glass doors. He had passed that sign hundreds of times without thinking, but today, the sunlight hit it in a way that made every letter shine like a piece of the past calling his name. Jordan and Sons Corporation. As steps stopped, his breath stopped. For a moment, even time seemed to stop. That was his name, his father's name, the name of the company his family built before tragedy took everything from them. No one inside this building knew the truth. Not the employees, not the managers, not even the CEO, who just fired him like trash. Jordan swallowed hard, feeling a memory rise like a storm he had tried to bury for years. A memory he never wanted to face again. And deep inside him, something old began to wake up. The CEO had no idea who he had just thrown out. Jordan didn't leave the building right away. His feet refused to move, as if the floor beneath him remembered him better than the people who walked on it every day. He lifted his hand and touched the cold glass beneath the company's name. His fingers shook as memories came crawling back, slow at first, then sharper like pieces of a life he tried so hard to forget. He remembered being a little boy, running through the old version of this same building. Back then, it wasn't made of bright glass or shiny floors. It was smaller, warmer, and filled with workers who smiled at him and called him little man. His father, tall and proud in his brown suit, used to lift him up and say, "One day, you'll run this place, son. One day, you'll carry the Jordan name higher than I ever could." Jordan never asked for that dream, but the love in his father's eyes made him believe it anyway. But that was before everything collapsed, before his father's sudden death, before the investors took everything, before lawyers twisted words his family didn't understand, before he and his mother lost their home, their money, and the company itself. And now, years later, he stood here cleaning floors in a building that should have been his inheritance. He closed his eyes and breathed slowly, trying to steady the storm inside him. He could hear people whispering behind him, wondering why he was still standing there. He ignored them. For the first time in 10 years, Jordan wasn't thinking like a cleaner. He wasn't thinking like someone who lived in silence. He was thinking like a man who finally felt the weight of his bloodline press against his heart. Just then, Someone cleared their throat behind him. It was Mr. Collins, the CEO. His expensive shoes clicked loudly against the marble as he stepped closer, irritation on his face. "I thought I told you to leave," Collins said sharply. "Why are you still here?" Jordan didn't turn around. He kept staring at the metal letters. "I was just looking at the name," he said quietly, almost to himself. Collins scoffed, annoyed. "What about it?" Jordan finally turned, his eyes steady. "It's my family name." The CEO blinked, confused for a moment, then smirked. "Yeah, sure. And I'm the president. Don't waste my time." Before he could finish, a sudden voice echoed from the upper balcony. "Collins." A stern, commanding shout. Everyone in the lobby turned as the elderly chairman of the board appeared at the railing above, a man rarely seen in the building. Always silent, always watching. His eyes weren't on Collins. They were locked on Jordan. Slowly, the chairman gripped the railing and said words that froze the entire lobby in place. "Bring that man to my office." NOW. The elevator ride felt longer than it ever had in Jordan's life. Not because of the distance, but because of the weight in the air. As the doors closed, he stood between two security guards who didn't say a word, their eyes fixed forward like statues. But Jordan's mind was far from quiet. It spun with questions, doubts, and a fear he hadn't felt since he lost the company years ago. Why did the chairman call for him? Did he know the truth? Did he remember his father? Did he recognize the name on the building? Or worse, did he already know everything and was preparing to throw him out again? When the elevator doors finally opened on the top floor, Jordan felt like he had stepped into another world. The carpet was thicker, the lights softer, and the air calmer, almost too calm, like the silence before a storm. The hallway smelled faintly of cedarwood and old books. It felt like a place where big decisions were made. Decisions that shaped lives. At the end of the hall stood the chairman's office. Heavy wooden doors, tall frosted glass, and a brass plate with his name. One guard knocked gently, and a deep voice from inside said, "Bring him in." The door opened. The room looked nothing like the rest of the building. It was filled with history-old photographs, shelves of dusty binders, a giant map of the city on the wall. But what caught Jordan's eyes first wasn't the room. It was the chairman. Mr. Whitaker sat behind a large oak desk, his gray hair neatly combed, his reading glasses hanging from a thin chain. He wasn't staring at Collins. He wasn't looking at the guards. He wasn't even looking at his papers. He was looking directly at Jordan, and he looked emotional, not angry, not confused. Emotional. "Close the door," the chairman said. The guards obeyed. Now it was just the three of them, Mr. Whitaker, Jordan, and the CEO standing awkwardly near the wall like a school kid caught in trouble. "Come closer, son," the chairman said. Jordan hesitated, but something in the old man's eyes pushed him forward. His feet felt heavy, but he kept moving until he stood right in front of the desk. Mr. Whitaker studied his face for a long moment, too long. Then he whispered the words Jordan had not heard in years, the words that pulled the ground from under him. "You look exactly like your father." Collins spun around in shock. His father. Jordan's breath stopped. The chairman opened a drawer and pulled out an old photograph. A young black man standing proudly in front of a half-built building, the same building they were standing in now. "My God," Whitaker said softly, voice shaking. "I never thought I'd see a Jordan walk through these doors again." Jordan's throat tightened. His hands trembled, because that man in the photograph was his father, the one who founded the company long before he died. And then the chairman said something that made Collins' face turn pale. "Collins, you just fired the son of the man who built this entire corporation." Jordan felt the room tilt. Collins stuttered. What? That's impossible. He's just a..." The chairman slammed his hand on the desk, the sound echoing like thunder. "He is Jordan's blood, the rightful heir, and you," he pointed at Collins, "have made the biggest mistake of your career." Jordan stood speechless. Then the chairman leaned forward, eyes burning with truth. "Son, you have no idea what your father left behind for you." Jordan felt like the room had stopped breathing. The chairman's words echoed inside him, shaking old memories he had buried under years of silence and struggle. Your father left something behind. The sentence played over and over in his mind like a drumbeat he could not silence. He stared at Mr. Whitaker, trying to understand if this was real or just another painful hope life dangled in front of him. The chairman slowly stood up and walked toward a large cabinet against the wall. The wood was old, scratched with age, holding decades of secrets. With a heavy sigh, he unlocked it and pulled out a thick brown folder covered in dust. He brushed the top gently, almost with respect, before turning back to Jordan. "This," he said quietly, "has been waiting for you a long time." Jordan didn't move. His hands felt numb. His heart felt loud inside his chest. Mr. Collins, the CEO, stepped forward, confused and annoyed. "This is ridiculous. Why would his father leave anything here? The man lost the company years ago." Whitaker cut him off with a sharp glare. "No, Collins. He didn't lose it. It was taken from him, and you know exactly how." Jordan watched the color drain from Collins' face. The chairman wasn't talking like a boss. He was talking like a man carrying guilt that had been growing for years. Whitaker placed the folder on the desk and opened it carefully. Inside were old letters, contracts, photographs, and one sealed envelope with Jordan's full name written on it. Not printed, not typed, handwritten by his father. Jordan felt his knees weaken. "This building wasn't just a business for your father," the chairman said, his voice softer now. "It was his dream, his legacy. And when he died, he paused, his voice cracking with regret. "We didn't protect that legacy the way we should have." Jordan swallowed hard. Every word felt like a weight on his chest. The chairman continued. "Years later, after everything was taken from your family, I found this folder hidden in the old office basement. I wanted to return it to you, but I couldn't find you or your mother. It was like your family disappeared overnight." Jordan closed his eyes. He remembered that night. The darkness, the fear, his mother crying quietly so he wouldn't hear, but he did. Collins stepped back, panic rising. "What exactly is in that file?" he demanded. The chairman ignored him and gently slid the sealed envelope toward Jordan. "Son," he said softly, "this letter was written just for you. And what's inside this folder may give you something your father didn't have before he died. Justice." Jordan stared at the envelope. His father's handwriting, his father's final words, his father's truth. His hands trembled as he touched the paper, feeling the rough edges, as if time itself was holding its breath. The room was silent. Then the chairman spoke again, quiet, serious. "There is something else you need to see before you open that letter." Jordan looked up slowly. Inside the folder, under the contracts, under the letters, there was a legal document with Jordan's name on it and a signature that could burn the whole company down. The chairman lifted it carefully, and Collins gasped, because he knew exactly what it meant. "Jordan," Whitaker whispered, "this document proves you are never supposed to lose this company." Jordan's world spun. Everything he believed, everything he suffered, everything he lost, might not have been an accident. It might have been stolen. And now the truth was staring him in the face. Jordan stared at the document in the chairman's hands, the room spinning slowly around him as if the world had tilted off its balance. For years, he believed his family lost everything because life was unfair, because money ran out, because his father got sick, because good people sometimes just fall. But the paper in front of him told a different story, a darker one. The chairman placed the document on the desk and slid it toward him. "This," he said quietly, "is the original ownership agreement. Your father never signed away his rights. The company was taken through forged signatures and pressure on your family when you were too young to fight back. I found this buried in old archives. Someone tried to hide it." Jordan's chest tightened. Forged, stolen, everything his family lost. Wasn't fate. It was someone's choice. He felt anger rise in his throat, not loud, but slow and painful, like a fire that had been waiting for years to burn. His father worked day and night for this company. His mother broke her back trying to keep their world together. And all that time, people who smiled at them in boardrooms were planning to take everything. Collins, the CEO, swallowed hard and stepped back. This can't be real. There must be some mistake. There is no mistake, Whitaker said sharply. I recognize the lawyer's signature. He was fired years ago for fraud. This document proves your father was still majority owner when he died, which means his rights passed to his only son. Jordan felt the weight of the words land slowly on his shoulders. His father's rights, his father's company, his father's dream. The chairman continued, voice heavy with guilt. I should have spoken sooner. I was younger then, scared, and Colin's father had more control than I did. But not anymore. Jordan's hands trembled as he held the document. All the nights he scrubbed floors. All the mornings he felt invisible. All the times people treated him like he was nothing. He wasn't nothing. He was the rightful heir, and Collins knew it. The CEO's voice cracked. What happens now? Whitaker looked at Jordan. Not demanding, not pushing, but with respect. That, son, he said softly, is for you to decide. For a long moment, nobody in the room moved. Jordan stood there, the document shaking slightly in his hands, the truth echoing louder than any voice could. It felt unreal, like he was standing inside the moment his entire life had been leading toward. Yet his heart didn't know whether to break or rise. Across the office, Collins looked like a man watching his world collapse in slow motion. His skin turned pale, his lips pressed into a thin, desperate line, and his eyes darted from the chairman to Jordan as if begging someone to wake him from a nightmare. But this wasn't a nightmare for Jordan. For the first time in many years, it felt like Justice. Whitaker walked around the desk, standing beside Jordan with a hand gently resting on his shoulder. Son, your father founded this company with honesty and heart. It wasn't meant to be taken by people who cared more about power than people. Your father trusted me, and I failed him. I won't fail you. Jordan swallowed hard. Part of him wanted to shout, to demand answers, to make Collins feel the same helplessness he felt the day his mother packed their bags and said they had to leave everything behind. But another part, the part shaped by his father's kindness, kept him steady. Collins finally spoke, voice trembling. You can't take this company from me. I worked for everything I have. I rebuilt it. You built nothing. Whitaker cut in sharply. You inherited a throne your family stole. Collins shook his head, fear turning into anger. You can't just hand this company to Ajahn. He stopped, realizing too late that every word was now a weapon pointed at himself. Whitaker's eyes hardened. Finish that sentence, and you won't even leave this building with a box. Jordan didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He simply stepped forward, holding the old document, and said quietly, I didn't choose this fight, but I'm not running anymore. Collins stared at him, chest rising and falling fast, as his power slipped from his hands like sand. And then the chairman spoke the words that shattered the last remaining piece of the CEO's pride. Effective immediately. Collins, you are suspended? Jordan will review the company's future. The room fell into stunned silence. Collins stumbled back, breath shaking. And Jordan, the same man Collins fired like trash just an hour ago, now stood at the edge of claiming everything his father once lost. Of Part 7 Co 350 plus words main pure cinematic. Emotional. Suspense heavy. Simple USA English. Flowing narration style main lik raha hoon. No broken lines. No choti sentences. Full movie feel. Jordan felt the room shift around him, as if every wall, every light, every breath inside the office had changed shape. Moments ago, he was a cleaner pushing a cart. Now, the company that once erased his family's name was asking him to decide its future. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff with the past behind him and an uncertain future ahead. Whitaker motioned for him to sit, but Jordan remained standing, his hands gripping the document tightly, knuckles white. He wasn't sure if sitting would make his legs give out or make him feel like he was dreaming. Everything inside him was a swirl for what happened. Grief for what was lost, confusion about what came next, and a quiet fear that maybe he wasn't ready for this. Collins stood near the window, breathing hard, running a shaky hand through his hair. The man who once barked orders like a king now looked like a child, who dropped something valuable and didn't know how to pick it up again. He tried to speak, but his voice cracked. This isn't fair. I didn't do anything. It was my father's decision. I just followed what I was told. Whitaker looked at him with disappointment deep enough to fill the whole room. That is not leadership, Collins. That is cowardice. You knew the story. You knew the truth. You knew who built this place. And still you let hatred and arrogance guide your decisions. Jordan's eyes softened not with forgiveness, but with understanding of how weak men hid behind power. Collins wasn't just cruel. He was afraid. Afraid of losing control. Afraid of being exposed. Afraid of someone like Jordan taking a place he never believed a man like him deserved. Whitaker turned back to Jordan. Your father's dream wasn't just to build a company. He wanted to help people, to give jobs to families, to make this city better. When he died, that dream died with him, and I let it happen. Jordan lowered his head. He remembered his father's voice on their last night in this building. Son, a company is more than walls and money. It's the name on the door. Never forget that name. For years, Jordan tried to forget, because remembering hurt too much. Now that name stared back at him from the door across the hall, waiting to be lifted again. Whitaker stepped closer, placing a file into Jordan's hands. These papers, they're the last pieces of your father's legacy. The board will listen to you now. They have to. You have every right to claim your place. Jordan's throat tightened. He wasn't sure he wanted revenge. He wasn't sure he wanted to run a company. He wasn't sure of anything except one thing. He couldn't walk away again. But before he could respond, the office door opened sharply, and the head of security rushed inside, pale and breathless. Sir, you need to come downstairs immediately. Something is happening in the lobby. Whitaker frowned. What now? The guard hesitated, then looked at Jordan. It's about him. Jordan stiffened. The guard swallowed. There's a crowd gathering, and someone out there is claiming to know the truth about his father's death. Jordan's heartbeat stopped for a second. The elevator ride back down felt different this time. Earlier, Jordan rode it as a cleaner heading toward the exit. Now, he was returning as something far heavier. A son carrying truth. A man standing between the past and the future, and the rightful heir to a legacy stolen from his family. But he wasn't thinking about power. He wasn't thinking about revenge. All he felt was a deep ache inside his chest. The ache of finally confronting the wounds he had carried since childhood. When the elevator doors slid open, the lobby wasn't quiet anymore. A crowd of employees, security guards, and curious visitors stood gathered in a circle near the center of the room. Voices whispered, eyes widened, and everyone seemed to be looking at the same person, an older man with gray hair, a cane, and tired eyes. Jordan stepped closer. The man slowly lifted his head. The moment their eyes met, Jordan felt something pierce through him, a memory of a face he had seen once before, years ago, standing in his father's office, arguing in hushed voices late at night. Whitaker spoke softly beside him. That's Mr. Harland. He was your father's lawyer. The crowd parted as Harland limped forward, his cane tapping lightly against the polished floor, echoing through the silent room. Jordan, he said, voice rough, as if carrying years of regret. I've been waiting a long time to speak to you. Jordan felt his chest tighten. What do you know about my father? Harland's eyes filled with shame. Everything, and I carried this guilt far too long. He took a shaky breath. Your father didn't die from sickness, like they told you. The entire lobby froze. Jordan's blood ran cold. He whispered, what are you saying? Harland looked at Collins, the current CEO, whose face went pale as chalk. Your father, Harland continued slowly, died from stress and pressure forced on him by the same men who stole the company from him. They pushed him until his heart failed. I helped cover it up, and I've regretted it every day since. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Collins stumbled backward, shaking his head violently. That's a lie. My father did nothing wrong. Harland's voice cracked. Your father led the scheme, Collins. He forged the papers. He pushed Jordan's dad out, and he made sure the truth never came out. Jordan felt the room spinning around him, but he didn't fall. He stood tall, taller than he ever had, because for the first time in his life, he wasn't carrying the pain alone. The entire building finally saw the truth. Whitaker stepped forward, eyes burning. This company should have belonged to Jordan all along. Employees whispered, shock turning into understanding. Some looked ashamed. Some looked hopeful. Some looked ready for change. Jordan took a long breath, steadying the storm inside him. He looked at Harland, the man who had helped destroy his family, and instead of hate, he felt something else. Sadness. Age. Regret. He spoke quietly, his voice strong but kind. What you did broke us, but running from it broke you too. Harland lowered his head as tears escaped. Jordan turned to Collins, meeting his terrified eyes. I don't want revenge, Jordan said softly. I want what my father built to mean something again. Whitaker nodded, placing a hand on Jordan's shoulder. And it will. Starting today. Slowly, Jordan stepped toward the glass doors. The morning light shined through them, hitting the gent metal letters above. Jordan and Sons Corporation as father's name. His name, a future finally returning home, for the first time in years. Jordan lifted his head and smiled, not in pride, but in peace, because he knew his father would have been proud, and he knew the building finally remembered who it belonged to. Moral: sometimes life pushes you to the lowest place, so you can rise exactly where you were always meant to stand.